Hello everyone, coming to you from Hutchinson, Kansas. We drove 3.5 hours from Kansas City to here. It's about in the middle of it's smack dab in the middle of Kansas. We are here to visit this place here, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. First of all, I wanna get this car washed. It's pretty bad. I just washed the windows on the RV. They didn't turn out too great, but you can see how bad everything is. So I'm gonna run into town quick and hopefully I'll be able to see out the windows when I get back. Jeez, I wonder how I'm gonna get there. Alright, this is the Strataca salt mine tour. Hope you enjoy. They got some movie memorabilia here. This is from Twister. Dorothy 2. And this is the barn burner bus. They couldn't get it down into the salt mine to preserve, so they just left it here. That's pretty cool.
Of course, we'll only be using one side of it here. There's a big blast of air blowing up right there when you get on. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Alright, so we're going to go 650 feet straight down to the mine level. Takes 90 seconds to get down there, not very long. And you might get a little pressure change in your ears like you do in the mountains. You just yawn or swallow should take care of that. A blast of air at the top. If you look here in the front of the car, right there, you can see there's a wall right there. So that wall divides our shaft in half vertically. So the fresh air comes into the mine and to the museum by the other side of that wall. When you get off the hoist, if you look overhead, there's a big round airplane hanging from the ceiling, and then there's some fans on the back side of the wall down there that pull that air in from the outside 24/7. And we're here. Watch your step going out of there. If you head over that way and follow Elizabeth, she will get you started.
Thank you.
Have a good time. You guys ready to go? Let me just check. I don't see anybody else going. I don't know if there's anybody else. Yeah, so come on.
So welcome to Strataca. You're now 600 feet underground, standing in an area that was once completely underwater, known as the Permian Sea, a shallow sea. As you make your way through this area, you can read more about the Permian era on these reader boards. Once you get to this arches, someone will be at that corner to greet you. Everything is at your own pace. Take as much time as you want. There are restrooms right there, or there are restrooms all the way down there.
This is the kind of salt they use on the roads, not the kind you can eat. Salt dust. It's a big chunk of salt. Can you see through that? It's luminescent. Ah, you can see right through it. Holy moly.
So amazing. Permian pellet area.
Christmassy down here. She's bringing up the rear. We're being followed by a bicyclist. We're the last tour, so they want us out of here. Guess we should see how they do this underground drilling.
There are basically 4 steps to mining rock salt, which are extremely similar to coal mining. One of the first steps is undercutting. The Carey Salt Company and its successors have used many undercutters over the years. The undercutter is a chainsaw that cuts into the bottom of the mine face, which is the wall about to be mined. Large 8-foot drill bits are attached to a drill to bore holes into the mine face. A miner generally drills 26 holes into a 40-foot face, which takes 20 minutes. The mine has several types of drills in operation. Some drills at this mine actually date to the 1930s and have been so well maintained that they're still in use.
Wow, those are big drill bits.
Undercut machine. You can see how they do it.
Yeah. And to bring all this equipment down, they had to take it apart in pieces and bring it down the shaft. Even this tractor and stuff like that. They have to take it all apart.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Look at all this equipment.
I don't even know how they can do that. It is so cool.
Look at these old tractors. Yeah, let's watch the blasting video now. So they undercut it and they drill it and then they blast it.
Once the wall has been drilled and undercut, explosives are put in the holes. At first, the miners used electric caps wired to set off a series of blasts in sequence. This was dangerous. Later, they used the non-electric fuse and cap method of blasting, which, because the burning fuse was visible, was safer. After the holes are drilled, the powder man comes behind the driller and prepares the holes for blasting. Blasting caps and deta primers are inserted into the holes. Then, an explosive shock tube is used to fill the holes with ammonium nitrate using an air compressor. The blasting caps are tied to one fuse and their detonation is staggered. First, the central lower holes are blasted, then the middle and outer holes, and then the top area. Even with the delays, however, to blast one wall only takes about a second. Usually 5 walls are blasted each day. At 3:30, the end of the day's shift, everyone leaves the mine face but the powder man and one other miner who remain behind to blast. The caps are set, giving them 4 minutes to get to safety, about 300 yards away. What took all day to undercut and drill is blasted away in less than 5 minutes. About 250 tons of rock salt is produced for every 40 feet of wall. Between 500 and 1,000 tons of salt come down every day, ready to be crushed and hauled topside.
Oh, dude, he must have come here, huh? That's a big vehicle. Look at that thing. It's picking up candy. $25 It's a loader. 150 miles worth of tunnel under here. Wow. Sparkles. It's like quartz or crystals.
So you can see the videos.
Yeah. Don't like that.
You can put yourself and your family a much better chance of survival and recovery if you understand the basic hazards of nuclear attack. When a nuclear bomb or missile
Yeah, they were going to use this for civil defense, nuclear. If there was a nuclear attack, they were going to send people down here, but then they realized that the elevator couldn't bring enough people down. They just kind of abandoned the idea, I guess, but they left everything here. They stockpiled it, and it's all here still. I mean, they could still get enough people down here, I guess. 3-minute up and down each. People would be fighting though.
In time for you to reach shelter or at least take cover, you may receive warning of an attack by radio, television, or through the outdoor warning system in your community. It's important that you learn to recognize the attack warning signal and not confuse it with any.
Yeah, so they brought all this down here.
The standard attack warning signal is a 3 to 5 minute wait
Back in the
or a series of
day.
whistles, horns, or other devices. Each of these signals means that an actual enemy attack has been detected, and you should take protective action immediately. Find out from your local
Geiger counter.
the attack warning system that will be used in your community.
Okay, this is where the area they use for storing things. Stuff from the Men in Black. Cool. I've never seen real movie props. It's a miniature of the Daily Planet. Nightly Cook racing suit. Worn by Cameron Diaz. And Charlie's Angels. There's a lot of artwork and stuff. Storage from Troy. I don't think I saw that. I didn't see that movie. Newspaper from 1865. A day after Abe Lincoln was killed. That's the print. Ali from the movie Ali. Yeah, they want to preserve all this stuff from 20th Century Fox.
35mm original negative.
Oh, they actually had it on reels back then. Friends. Huh. Superman's costume. From 1993 to 1997. Here you go. Talladega Nights. Mr. Freeze from Batman. That's the costume. Huh. Here's the Batman costume. Worn by George Clooney. So this is Talladega Nights. Ricky Bobby. And this is from the Monument Men. All the reels. A lot of reels. And here's the gift shop.
I like the sweatshirt.
Salt of the Earth. Strataca.
The floor is a little bit split, so be careful with that. When you get onto the train, it does rock a little bit, so just be careful with that as well. And then we can have two in a seat, and we're gonna load front to back.
It's a tiny train.
Attention! Attention, please! As we get ready to start our journey into the mine, remember, for your safety, you must remain seated at all times. In the wall to your right is a bulkhead. A bulkhead is what the miners call a wall that was used to direct airflow. This bulkhead is made of 1.5-inch thick tongue and groove planks supported by 6-inch by 6-inch timbers and sealed with black tar paper on the backside to keep air from that part of the mine from coming into this side. It was slowly being crushed by the roof, but as you can see, it finally came down. On the platform are a couple of two-thumbed gloves. In the 1940s, when this area was being mined, everyone conserved materials for the war effort, imagine how it must have sounded when this roof fell. From 1923 to 1983, the miners used a rail system to transport salt from the mine face to the salt skip, where it was hoisted topside. Then, in 1983, they switched to a conveyor belt system. On the left is a car that was used to haul salt and railroad tracks that were abandoned. In case you were wondering, trash isn't the only thing miners left underground. And apparently this area was used as a restroom. Oh, no fancy porta pots here. And they weren't very careful with the toilet paper either.
In case you were wondering, trash isn't the only thing miners left underground. Apparently this area was used as a restroom, no fancy porta pots here, and they weren't very careful with the toilet paper either. This is one reason we say don't lick the salt. As we round the curve up ahead, two spotlights will come on. The first on the left will highlight a stack of empty cardboard dynamite boxes. Then on the right you'll see a pillar that is scaling or spalling. This means that the salt is breaking away from the wall. Like roof sags and floor heaves, this is a natural occurrence in a salt mine. As your adventure continues, keep in mind that we have tried to leave the mine just as it was years ago.
So the rail bed was the lifeblood of the mine, as it was the only way to get salt out of the mine and to the salt skip from 1923 to 1983, until they switched to the conveyor belt system that they still use to this day. Now, right here to the left, you can see this orange electric locomotive. This was nicknamed the Galloping Goose. You can see the long gooseneck-like arm attached to the DC power cable, and galloping because the springs were so tightly wound on it, whenever it would start and stop, it would jump up and down, almost as if it was galloping. So miners didn't like it too much. They only used it as a backup engine. Right here again to the left, you've got these old salt carts labeled CSC for Terry Salt Company. Each of these carts could hold 4 tons of salt each, and were all loaded up by hand by a group of miners referred to as muckers. For each cart that a mucker would fill up, he would get 1 brass chip they could turn in topside for 50 cents each. So a good mucker could make about $4 a day just by loading up these carts. Lastly, we've got the powder cart, which was used for carrying around explosives. You can see an assortment of old boxes and bags that were used throughout the years. Now, originally, the miners used dynamite until they switched to ammonium nitrate fuel oil, or ANFO. That's because it's a little cheaper and a little safer to use, but the miners down here have always lasted. Now, as we get into our dark ride, you can see a lot more of what's called the room and pillar method of mining. This room and pillar uses 40-foot by 40-foot pillars surrounded by 50-foot by 50-foot rooms And if you look at it from the top down, it sort of kind of looks like a big waffle iron pattern. This has been done to help with the transportation of large equipment and to help with airflow. It's also different than something like the room and panel method of mining. That uses 300-foot-long walls, and it makes that big hallway, which is what you guys saw in the Permian room when you first started your tour down here. Now, right here to the right, you can see these walls with a sort of vertical wavy pattern on them. These are what the miners refer to as ribs. Each rib is equivalent of 1 blast each, and shows you just how deep the miners would blast, being about 8 feet each. If you wanted to know just how many blasts it took to mine out this entire hallway, all you'd have to do is count up all the ribs. So, there's about 12 ribs here. It probably took them about 12 blasts to make. Now, right above us, I'm going to drive slowly so everybody gets a chance to see this. This is not a result of blasting, but a result of a machine called the continuous miner. The continuous miner uses a drum head that chews at the salt, making it so that the largest piece that would fall from the ceiling be about the size of a pea. This is what we've done for our event center, our snack area, and our break rooms. So it makes it safe for us to remove our hard hats in those areas. However, everywhere else here in the mine, we have not done this, so we have to keep our hard hats on everywhere else we go. Now this sign right in front of us that says East Avenue G, that is actually the street that we pulled off on to get into our parking lot. So we are now 650 feet under that street. Now if you guys want to take a look to your right, you can see a crystallized salt pond. This is when water entered the salt bed millions of years ago. So during the Permian period, you'd have dry periods. During that time, the salt vein would form cracks in it. Then the water would come back in and it would go into those cracks, forming brine pools. Those brine pools would then filter out any of the impurities in the salt, where the mud and the silt would sink to the bottom and the pure salt would float to the top. Then that water would evaporate and you're left with the crystallized salt pod at the top there. Now we'll get a better chance to see that here in just a minute, but just know that that is one of the few ways that natural pure salt can be formed down here. Now, one of the most important things down here to the miners is light. Without light, you can't see, and if you can't see, you don't know where you're going, and then you'd be in big trouble. So before the invention of the electric headband lights, the miners used what was called a carbide light. This was essentially just an open flame above their head. That flame could easily get snuffed out, leaving the miners in complete darkness. I'm going to give an example of that right now. So this is complete mine darkness. If you try to put your hand in front of your face, you won't even be able to see it. If you stay down here for too long, you'd eventually go blind because your eyes need light to focus, and without light to focus, they would eventually atrophy. So to prevent that sort of thing from happening, the miners had a couple of fail-safes. One of them was just carrying multiple lights on their person, so if they still had, if one light went out, they still had a few more on them. The other was traveling around in the buddy system, so if their buddy's light went out, they could just help them reignite that light. Right here to the left, you can see a gob wall, that's G-O-B. These are old dynamite boxes that are filled with salt that are then stacked together to make these walls. And they're done to help with airflow. Typically, when a miner is finished working in a certain part of the mine, they have no intention of returning to that part of the mine. So they don't want fresh air flowing in parts of the mine they won't be working in. They want it to flow to the face where they will be working. So they would stack up and compile these walls to again help with that airflow. Now we'll see a couple more gob walls along the way here, but just know that this gob wall and the next one we'll see, those are authentic gob walls from the 1940s. Now as we drive past this, you're welcome to look up. I just ask that you don't touch it. Point it out so you know what to look for. This is a large pocket of crystallized red salt. And what gives it that very vibrant red color is often due to large concentrations of potassium and iron being found in the salt. Now, originally, the miners would not mine this salt because a lot of the salt that they mined down here was used as salt licks for livestock. However, the livestock would not lick this salt because it was far too bitter of a taste for them. So if the livestock weren't going to lick it, then the farmers weren't going to buy it. And if the farmers weren't going to buy it, then the miners weren't going to mine it. Nowadays, however, most of the salt that is used down here is used as road salt. And the road doesn't care what the salt tastes like, so the miners mine all of it. And right here to the left is a closer look at that crystallized salt pod. Again, you can really see the different layers here. So you've got the crystallized salt at the top, the red salt in the middle, and then you've got the mud and the silt at the bottom. So that salt at the top is probably about 99% pure salt. Everywhere else down here is only between 94 and 96% pure, which might sound nice, but that is still not pure enough for human consumption. None of the salt that is mined down here is mined as table salt. Now coming up here on the left is another gob wall. You can actually see that this gob wall has been knocked over. But if you want to take a look behind that is the preferred method that the miners use now. That's what's called a brattice curtain. A brattice curtain is a lot more time efficient than a gob wall. If a gob wall took an entire day to build, a brattice curtain only takes a couple of hours, and it is reusable. So it's the preferred method that the miners use now. Now this picture right here in the corner, that is an example of an original gob wall. This is where miners would take gobs of salt, which is where the term gob wall came from, stack them and compile them all together, and that was again done to help with airflow. This last picture right here of these two miners next to this fan, that is one of the original fans that they use down here to help redirect airflow here in the mine. You can see it's a bit unconventional by modern standards. For one thing, there's no real barrier between the miners and the fan blade, but also, that's not even an actual fan blade, that is a windmill blade. Kansas has got a lot of windmills, and the miners are very resourceful in taking what they can find topside and repurposing it underground, so they just use that as one of their original fans. Plastic and plastic. What does this mean? It means it's very flexible. It can bend, twist, and contort in its movements. A great example of that is right here to our right. This is an example of a floor heave. So what's happening here is this pillar is attracting all the stress from the ceiling, and it's slowly being pushed down by gravity. All the salt around it, rather than crumbling, is actually heaving up and around the pillar. This is very similar to if you had a thing of Play-Doh. Put the Play-Doh on the table, push down with your thumb, what ends up happening? All of that Play-Doh will end up heaving up and around your thumb. The exact same thing is happening here with this pillar. Slowly, they're the ones mining the salt. You've got underground vaults and storage, they're the ones with all the movie memorabilia and the documents. And then you've got Strataca, the ones you were touring with here today. Now for us and underground vaults and storage, everything we bring down through that hoist. Same hoist that you guys rode down. But for the miners, they use the original salt skip as a 5 by 4 foot wide salt skip. It's about half the size of the hoist you guys rode down. Everything they bring down, they either have to dangle it down the shaft or they have to bring it in piece by piece and reassemble it here underground. Great example of that is right here to your right. This is a 1932 Chevy pickup truck, and it's something they had to bring in piece by piece and reassemble here underground. You can see it's missing a few pieces, however, such as the door, the passenger seat. Is an example of what the Atomic Energies Commission was using to measure the mine to determine how long it would take for this mine to close in on itself. And the reason for that was actually because they were looking to store low-grade nuclear waste down here. They determined, however, that the rate in which this mine was closing was far too slow of a rate to ever justify storing any nuclear waste down here. So they never ended up storing anything. They did, for a time, end up storing it in Lyons, Kansas, in their salt mine. However, due to public outcry and a couple of court cases, they were forced to relocate. They ended up settling near Carlsbad, New Mexico, where they've been in business ever since 1972. Now you might be wondering how salt was discovered here in the first place. Well, it was discovered by a man named Ben Blanchard in 1888. Ben Blanchard was the founder of South Hutchinson. And when he bought up all that land, he was looking for investors. So he thought to himself, if I start drilling for oil, I will get a lot of investors. He started drilling. What did he find instead? He found salt. So for a time, there were 10 salt companies here in Hutchinson. Now only 3 remain. You've got the Hutchinson Salt Company. They're the only true mine here in Hutchinson. The other 2 companies, Cargill and Morton, use the evaporation method for extracting salt, where they put water down into the salt bed, force it back up into the surface, let the water evaporate, and that leaves behind just the pure salt. Similar to the crystallized salt pod process you guys saw earlier. Now here's your guys' chance to get your own piece of souvenir salt. Just a couple of quick ground rules before I let you off the tram. Please don't climb on the pile. Please don't throw the rocks at anybody. If you see a piece that's kind of large, it needs to be the size of your palm or smaller. But if you would like a bunch of small pieces, you're welcome to grab a bag on that table right there and fill that up with salt. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes so you guys are good to exit off to your right now. I'm getting there.
Yeah, that looks good. Are there prettier ones? This one's really clear.
You want this?
Yeah.
Interactive with the audience. You can be the one who gets murdered or the murderer. So tickets are on sale topside. It is 18 or up due to adult humor and alcoholic beverages, but it is a lot of fun. The theme changes each time that they do it. So they did one back in August, and that was Indiana Jones themed. This next one that is coming up will be on December 12th and 13th, so about 11 days from now. But that one is going to be more holiday, Christmas themed.
Yeah, interesting.
Good. As the hoist comes to a stop, it may jostle. This is sometimes a little rough, perfectly normal. Just don't have your knees locked, have them slightly bent to maintain balance. Let's grab that latch. Push this up.
Blue bins.
Well, the money parts.